Hi everyone, welcome back. We're going to talk about workshops. Workshops. They can be a terrible thing, they can be an amazing thing. I do want to start off by saying there is a bit of a controversy with workshops. It doesn't seem to have affected Atlanta too much, but it's definitely affected Los Angeles a lot. There are two camps when it comes to casting director and agent workshops. One, that they're great opportunities for actors to be seen by casting directors. Two, the other camp, and the not so good camp, is that a lot of people view these as paid auditions or paid job interviews, which technically is illegal. So, right off the bat, any casting director or agent workshop you go to, if the person who's running the place is like, oh, you're going to get cast and you're going to get booked by this agent, if they're not telling you that these workshops are for educational purposes only, you should run. There are some great workshop places here. I love Get Seen Studios. They have a lot of great workshops there. My agent workshops there. I think it's the only place she workshops at. I think Jesse's great, and so I would highly recommend that place because I know it. But I also know there's a lot of other workshop places around Atlanta. So just make sure you do your homework, do your due diligence. Here are some things that you need to know about how to effectively workshop. There used to be a lot of actors in LA that just like every week would follow the casting director and the agent all around town. That's the best way to lose all of your money. And acting is an expensive business. You're the CEO of your own company, and with that comes overhead and business costs. So you really have to be smart and judicious about that so that, again, you can get the best return on your investment. Just because a casting director is doing a workshop does not mean you should go see that casting director. Don't just go out and be like, oh, I'm going to make sure I see every casting director in the world. That's not going to be as productive as you think. Keep in mind, what if that casting director isn't casting anything? What if that casting director cast a show that never cast anyone that's your type? There was a show on NBC, Chuck, a long time ago, where everyone was like, oh, Martinez, you should audition for that show. You should go do those workshops. And I did the workshop. I love the casting director. I thought the casting director was just really cool individual. But then I started watching the show and realized they don't cast anyone my age on the show. Like, it wasn't happening at the time. So, like, I did that, and okay, great. I spent like $200 or $300, and no one's ever going to call me in for that because that show only casts people that are either older or younger than me. So keep in mind, take a look at the breakdowns, go to IMDb, see who's getting cast on the show. Are they casting people within your age range? The more frequently they're casting people in your age range. So for example, if you're like 18 to 24, like, and you're a CW type, yeah, you do all the CW workshops. You know, it's better for you to do a CW workshop or someone who does workshop for someone who does CW shows than to say for you to read for someone who's doing documentary series. Honestly, if it's an agent workshop, you really don't need to do an agent workshop more than twice a year. I recommend doing your agent workshops in October, November, or in April and May and June, just because that's generally the time of year when agents tend to be looking more for talent. So if you're doing an agent workshop, that's a great time to do that. But definitely don't do like 50 agent workshops within the year because they'll gladly take your money. I mean, if you want to give it to them, they will take your money. But don't go in there like, oh, I'm going in and I'm, going to book this job. You really need to go into these with the mindset of this is for an educational purpose and this is to start networking and building relationships. So, educational purpose. Every casting office has a lot of do's and don'ts, things that are pet peeves for them and things that are like standard that if you don't do it, they're not even going to let you in their office. Doing a casting director workshop is a great way to find out, oh, this casting director hates horizontal headshots. This casting director is totally okay with it. So for this casting director, don't give him a horizontal headshot. Certain casting directors you're going to meet, you're going to find out all the quirks about their offices. Keep in mind, some of these casting directors are former actors. Some of these casting directors are former teachers. Some casting directors have no knowledge about acting. So really understanding who are the casting directors that communicate with actors well. When you're going to their office to read, for the few that still do in-person auditions out here, what's the reader going to be like in their office? You would be surprised. Some casting directors make it a point to have phenomenal readers. Some casting directors, like, doesn't matter who the reader is, and they're literally going to be reading your lines like this. That's the kind of information I love to know walking into the office. Another thing about workshops, I'm a big fan of taking workshops with the casting assistants and the casting associates. And a lot of people say, but Martinez, they're not the head casting director. They're just like the help in the office. Well, keep in mind, that casting director you're auditioning for at some point in their career was a casting associate and a casting assistant themselves. This is a small town, guys, and this is an even smaller industry. And your casting assistant today, in 10 years, could be the top casting director in all of the Southeast. So get to know them now. Be on their radar. Also, too, while the assistants and the associates don't have all the power, the casting directors do trust them and look to them for advice and do ask them for recommendations. And if the casting associate or assistant is good and they have the ear of the casting director, they might be able to get you in for an audition. Like, I've had that happen to me many times. As a matter of fact, Without a Trace and Ringer, same office. Shaner Testa and Kimberly McCullough was the casting assistant for that one. And me and her got along great. And the two head casting directors had a great relationship with her. They trusted her. She said, hey, I know this guy Martinez. They said, all right, bring him in. Call him up. So it's really, really good to get to know them as well. I kind of like to bookend everyone in an office if I can. If it's an office that's on my target list, I'll see the head casting director, I'll try to see the assistant, and I'll try to see the associate as well, depending on my finances. It's key because, you know, if someone is interested in you and they ask you, hey, do you know about this person? And if someone else in the office can speak up and go, oh yeah, I saw him at a workshop 2 years ago, or 2 weeks ago. He crushed it. Oh, okay, I feel more confident bringing him in. So keep that in mind. It can help you a lot. You're going to find out all the quirks about their offices. Really take the time, write it down. It's a really good opportunity, too, to find out personal information about the casting director that you can connect with. What are their interests? What are they into? You know, where do they go to college? Do they like sports? I can't tell you how often, just by taking the time to get to know them as human beings as opposed to casting directors, that's actually benefited my career more than like, hi, I'm Martinez, I'm an actor, and I can do this. You know. So be human. At least in LA, it might be a little bit different here. Well, it is a little bit different here, actually. So there's a couple of different formats for how a lot of the workshops go, and you should kind of familiarize yourself with them. In agent workshop, a lot of the times, agent workshops generally tend to give you the opportunity to come in with prepared material, as opposed to given a cold read on the spot. Really, really take advantage of this, guys. I cannot tell you, after all the years that I worked workshops, that people were coming in for, you know, UTA, William Morris. They're given a workshop, or I'm sorry, they can bring in their own audition piece, and these people just didn't put in the work. It looks like they're cold reading for these major artists. If you are coming in with your own material, you need to smash it, okay? There should be no excuse or reason, at least on your end, why that wasn't the best performance you can give. Because, I mean, you can work on it every day. You can use the same monologue over and over and over again, taking around different casting directors. Just always keep it sharp, or always have the same scene that you use. Sometimes they will give you a scene on the spot. The casting director will kind of observe the room, look around, and okay, I see this type, and then they'll start pulling scenes and handing them out, and then they'll have you cold read, rehearse the scene, meaning they'll give you anywhere from, in LA, it's like 10, 15 minutes. Here in Atlanta, it's anywhere from like 10 to 30 minutes, just depending on the workshop format, where you'll go in, you'll prep the scene right then and there, and then you'll just get up and perform it for the casting director. What I find in a lot of these situations, what really helps is two things. Whenever you get the scene, really establish what is the relationship with the other character. Like, who are they to you? Why are they important to you in your life? And then what is the obstacle in the scene? So relationship and the conflict, the obstacle in the scene. In every scene, there's usually, especially in a casting director workshop or an agent workshop, there's usually going to be some kind of conflict in the scene. That's why we call this art drama. If there was no drama, if there was no conflict, it would just be a scene about exposition, and it would get probably cut because it would be very boring. So by making those two choices right away, because you're only going to have 10 minutes, it's going to give you a huge leg up over a lot of actors. Because most actors are going to be concerned with, oh my God, how do I memorize these 6 pages in 10 minutes? Guys, the casting director just gave you that scene. He or she knows that you are not going to have that memorized. It's okay. Have it in your hand. Don't be afraid to look at it. Use it as a prop, don't sit here and read off the paper like this, but take your time, do your scene, glance down, pull the line, stay in character, come back and deliver it. They're totally accepting of that. Another tip I want to give you about casting director workshops: understand your type. If you're 18, I don't recommend going to a casting director workshop or an agent workshop and doing King Lear. Number one, they don't cast a ton of Shakespeare stuff. Number two, you're 18, you're never going to play King Lear. You're way too young. And number three, you did not give the casting director or an agent a good representation of the type of work you can do. So if you are given the opportunity to bring in your own material, really take time and find out, what's my type? What do I think what are the types of roles that I go out for all the time? How does everyone see me as? Make sure when you go to these workshops, your headshots look like that your headshots look like you, and that you bring in a scene that if you're like the bartender, right? You're the one that gets cast as the bartender, and you're like, I'm going to be the best bartender actor in the world. Then come in with a bartender scene so they can see you doing that. It's not always about showing that you can do the toughest work. It's about showing them, hey, this is my lane, this is where I can fit in, and this is where I'm driving to the bank. When you're in a workshop and a casting director says, oh, tell me about yourself, don't just start spouting off on your resume, oh, well, I was recurring on Walking Dead, recurring on Grey's Anatomy, and recurring. They've got your resume in front of them. They can see that. If they ask you that question, they're trying to get to know you as an individual. They're trying to get to understand your essence, because the better they can get to know you, the better opportunity they have of being able to find the right audition for your type of character. And that makes all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. If you're going out for the wrong roles, even if you're auditioning 1,000 times, you're just not going to book them. If you're only going out for 5 auditions for a year, but they are roles that you can just roll out of bed and kill in your sleep, you'll probably book half of those. So make sure when you go to the casting director workshop, you look like your headshot. It's an educational experience, but it is a professional setting. Okay? So if your headshot, you're the type of person that you're like the business CEO, and you show up to the workshop dressed like your headshot. I used to do it all the time. If you're playing one of these grungy types, yeah, okay, well then show up like that. So keep that in mind. If you're showing up to your workshop and you have your business photo, but then you're showing up in your sweats, that's not helping them see what you're trying to sell. But if you are going to be in your sweats all the time, get your headshot with you in your sweats. That way you're just like natural and comfortable. Again, it's all about just embracing who you are and letting the casting director and the agent see who that is in the workshop. Really, really important. Another tip I want to give you about casting director workshops. Sometimes it's better to just shut up. I have seen a lot of really talented actors that when they first started the workshop, the casting director really liked them. They came up, they did their performance, they were talented, but then they just kept talking and talking and talking and talking. And then the casting director is turning around telling them to shut up. And then a fight ensues, and then you never get called into that person's office again. That doesn't help. Be careful about the jokes you tell. When I first moved to LA, there was a casting director, very prominent one, and I told a joke that I thought was gonna be hilarious. Turned out he found that joke very offensive. He has never, in almost 17 years, I've never been called into his office. So, be very careful about that. You want to be professional. Also, too, don't argue with the casting director. If they're giving you an adjustment, you're up there, and they say, okay, cool, let me see you do it like this. Do not argue with them. Don't turn around and be like, oh, well, the reason I didn't do that was because for me, I feel like it. It's not about you. They just want to know if you can take direction. They just want to know if they send you to set, are you going to give the director a hard time, or are you going to do what the director asked you to do? It's really important. Sometimes you'll crush a scene, and they don't really have an adjustment to give you, but they'll just give you the adjustment just to see if you can take it. So be okay with that. Don't argue with them. What you want to remember, and this is really important when it comes to casting. Casting wants you to be a star. They want you to crush. They want to find you and be like, who is this person that I'm discovering? They want to be able to head to their producers and say, hey, I've got this amazing actor you need to see. They need you to help them look good so that they can keep working, because they're freelance job holders just like we are. So, you show up, you're well behaved in class, you do what they ask you to do, you take the redirect, you do not argue with the redirect. Even if you think the redirect is the stupidest thing you've ever heard in your life, even if it doesn't make sense why they would have you do that. If you don't understand the redirect, feel free, ask for clarification. Hey, I didn't get that. What do you mean by that? But do not argue with the casting director. Fastest way to never get invited to their office for an audition. So another thing I want to talk about is in terms of agent workshops. This is kind of tricky, because on the one hand, what I've learned is even if you crush an audition, or not an audition, I'm sorry. If you go to an agent workshop and you have your, prepared stuff, you go in there and you crush, you might not ever hear from these people. Just be aware of that. Some agents, go into the workshops, might not be looking for anyone. Their roster might be full. They might just be going to keep an eye out. You're going to hear agents say all the time, oh, we're not looking for anyone right now. Yes, I agree with that. However, if a truly phenomenal talent comes through that has a crazy marketable look, that's their money. They're not going to let that person go, or at least try to get them onto their roster. They're going to try to sign them. So keep that in mind. What I did find out about agent workshops was there was this great book, an agent tell-all. The gentleman's last name happened to be Martinez. And I think he's with KSR now. Anyways, doesn't matter. Really, really doesn't. But he had a book about being an agent, and there was something in his book that I found so relieving about the stress of trying to find an agent through an agent workshop. So he says in the book that when you're an agent and you're meeting a new actor, there's like this, like, you know how when dogs meet each other for the first time, they like sniff each other's butt. They're trying to find out what that person is about. That's kind of like what it is with casting. No, I'm sorry, with the agent workshops. You could come in, and because a lot of times those scripts are prepared, you could just have like the greatest, most amazing performance of your life, and you might not ever be able to reduplicate that again. So even if they like you, they're going to call you into the office and they're going to have you audition again just to make sure that wasn't a fluke performance. I remember one time I did an agent workshop and I killed it. And I was feeling ultra swaggy and ultra cocky. I felt like I had a really good rapport with this agent. We had really good chemistry together. So we do the workshop, and at the end he opens it up, and I raise my hand. He's like, yeah, what's your question? I was like, so when are you going to sign me? I don't know what I was thinking. But in a very calm and really intelligent way, he kind of explained to me. He's like, hey, look, I think you're great, but I like to date someone before I marry him. And that really gave me pause. I was like, wow, I like to date someone before I marry him. Because when an agent is going to sign you on, they are putting in all the work for free until you get paid. That could take 2 days. That could take 2 years. So keep that in mind. Just because you're phenomenal doesn't mean they're going to be rush and attack. You may need to do 2 workshops with that one. Or always follow up, with email if they give you an email or a postcard to the office. Just to kind of stay on the resume. If you feel you really crush with an agent, look on his roster. Does he have a whole bunch of people like you? Maybe that's why he's not picking you up. Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you're good or not. This doesn't have anything to do with workshops, but I'm going to throw it in here anyways, just because agents are stressful. If you submit to an agency and you don't hear back from them, don't stress out. It's really possible they never got your submission. I remember one time I was in LA, went to an agent's office because I had a friend who just moved from Florida that was going to be working there. And there was whoever was working at the front desk, and there were these 2 twin girls running around the office. The person to shut these kids up had the stack of submissions that people had mailed in. And he said, hey, do you girls want to help me out? Do you want to help me out? They're like, yeah. He said, I'm going to show you a picture. You let me know if you like it or not. So he would start showing them pictures, one at a time. And the little girl would be like, oh, I like that. She has a pretty smile. Yup. Show her the next picture. No smile. I don't like that one. This little girl only liked people who sent in smiling commercial pictures. If you sent in a theatrical headshot that day, your headshot ended up in the garbage can. The agent never even looked at it. The agent's assistant never even looked at it. The fate was determined by an 8-year-old girl. One of the headshots I had noticed, and the person looked familiar. So the girls get called in. Whoever was working at the front desk goes to the bathroom. Walk over to the trash can, pull out the girl's headshot. She graduated from Yale's MFA acting program. Was probably the best actor that agency was going to be seeing all year. So don't let it stress you if you submit to an agent and you don't hear back from them. Just pound the concrete, work the workshops, get to know people, build up your demo reel and your resume, all that'll come. Another thing to keep in mind about workshops. Never bring a weapon to a workshop. Don't pull out a gun. Don't pull out a knife. I've seen it happen multiple times. Even if it's right for your scene, don't do it. Because the minute you pull out a gun or the minute you pull out a knife, the casting director is no longer thinking about your performance. The casting director is thinking, holy crap, I might die right now. Because even though you may be cool and you may be a good actor, look around. There are a lot of nutty actors out there. We have some wackos within our ranks, and I kind of include myself in that. So do not do anything that will upset the casting director in terms of making them afraid for their life. Here's another thing that I find that happens a lot at casting director workshops. The workshop will end, and then everyone will start to like swarm the casting director or the agent at the very end of the workshop for what me and my wife like to call the opportunity to say the last dumbest thing they'll see that night. You have a whole bunch of desperate actors that are trying to get up in this person's face at the very end. Oh, wow, thank you. I thought it was great. I can't wait for you to represent me. Oh my God, I can't wait to work with you, blah, 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 blah. And then they're going to try to say something funny or memorable and blah, blah, blah. Casting director is getting so inundated with every student trying to do that, you don't stick out. And most of the time, the stuff that comes out of people's mouths that I've heard in those situations is not usually helpful. So play it cool, man. If you just did your work and you did a good job, that's what's going to impress the casting director, not whatever silly little thing you said to them at the end of the workshop. Because if your performance wasn't good, there's nothing you're going to say at the end where they're like, oh my God, forget that terrible performance. He likes jujubes. Bring him aboard! Like, it doesn't work that way. So just trust. Like, if you did the work and your work is good, that if something comes up and they need you and they think there's an opportunity, you may or may not get an audition, but don't be the guy that's just desperate and, just oozing it out of your pores, just trying to get up there and be like, hey, please notice me one time before you go. You're going to call me in, right? Nobody likes that, so don't do it. It really, really annoys casting directors. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for workshops. We'll see you on the other side.